Hello. I'm noticing as time goes on that more and more people are becoming disinterested in the prospect of artificial intelligence, which is the better name for machine learning algorithms that are being supported by data centers worldwide and have very complicated hot button issues that people have very strong opinions about. I'm not going to be talking about those particular issues. I'm here to present a nuanced opinion, potentially about the ways that you can use AI or machine learning algorithms to help you rather than to hinder you as a 3D modeler, or you can consider yourself an artist, since technically speaking, Planet Coaster is close enough to artistic expression that you can consider yourself an artist in this way. I guess what I'm trying to say is AI helping or hurting your creativity? Let's talk a little bit about what some creators are doing to enhance their creativity. I've seen some videos out there on the internet of AI prompting certain ways of making roller coasters, certain methods of building. Some creators have been using direct imagery in their parks on billboards. Some of them have been using basically a fake satellite image so that they can create a coaster from that particular perspective. And then you may have some that are even generating videos, which they're putting up on their channel, potentially as a way to garner interest in a park that they're working on, or potentially to have on in the background while guests walk about. You can have mixed feelings on any of those, but you don't have to necessarily be like for or against any or all of them. It's very complicated for where you put the bar, and everyone's going to put it somewhere differently. But ultimately, it comes down to how much you want to say that your creation is truly yours. I mean, at some point we have to admit that we did not create Planet Coaster. So there's only so far that we can go before we're saying that we did not create the actual software that we're using to build all this stuff. In the same way that a normal artist cannot say that they did not create the paint that they're using to draw on an easel. It's not really a one-to-one analogy, but I think you get the point. So what are the benefits of using AI in this sense? Well, for one thing, it really speeds up your process. Let's break this up into a couple of different segments. I feel like there's AI used for prompting, there's AI that's used for imagery, and then there's AI that's used for videos. For prompting in specific, it can help you get an idea of where to go with your park layout, with your coaster. You can ask it basically anything, and as long as it's not mechanics related, it'll be pretty accurate to something that you want to do creatively. So for instance, something that I have personally benefited from is when I ask ChatGPT mini model in Duck AI, which is an extension of DuckDuckGo, specifically about a type or style of building that I want to adapt and combine with something else, it'll give me ideas to go off of, and then I do all of the manual research myself so that I can see Google Images and see how things are built in a specific way, and try to gather sources based on what it is telling me to look up. It basically streamlines the process of me getting the idea in the first place. It essentially doubles the speed at which I can do the R&D for a project. What's the case for maybe images? I've seen some people use AI images that are relatively simple so that they can make sign art for their coasters made of basic shapes. I think that's relatively okay. It kind of skirts the line because each step in this process that you go down uses more energy in order to make happen. Some of the services that you would use have different paid tiers that you would need in order to even access that functionality. So again, where you stand on that is up to you. This is not a place for a flame war. I'm just kind of laying out the actual facts on the ground. But if you use images as a way to trace over things that you could put in game to cover them, then I see that as a very creative use of images. Additionally, it could help you get an idea for how things are placed around, but I wouldn't use it insofar as the idea generally just is a bunch of props thrown up onto a single image. And the problem with that is that you don't actually understand how things are supposed to be placed for ease of use, so that like when guests are in an actual environment, it'll make a whole ton of sense for a queue to be a certain way, a switchback queue to be a certain way, maybe regular guest paths to be a certain amount wide. Like, it doesn't understand the context for what your park actually looks like when you're asking it a question or asking it to generate something. And if you want to really get accurate with it, you need it to generate several images at minimum. And, you know, that's kind of where I personally draw the line, but to each their own. Now, as far as videos are concerned, I don't necessarily see exactly where this comes into play. Maybe if you wanted to use videos as like a teaser for the ride that guests will go on, like in-station teasers or pre-shows, I could see that being a thing, but honestly, it's kind of tough to really place how important that is. If you can think of or have used AI videos in any more practical ways that I'm not thinking of, I would like to hear them. With that said, please don't link any. But I would like to hear the case made for them. Maybe there's something I'm not seeing here. And again, videos are astronomically more intensive than even photos are. So it's really hard generally to understand why you would go for video when you could just make one yourself of you recording various spots in your park and have it make a little more sense, if you know what I mean. Especially if you know YouTube already, you already have the skills to make that happen. So let's talk ownership. When you build a park using AI, or you build a blueprint using AI, how much can you really call it truly yours? It feels to me like the less idea generation you have when you're making the thing in the first place, the less you can really truly call it a concept that you came up with. Now, you may have like a couple of ideas to combine together, like say 2 different themes that you think would be interesting in a setting where you were placing down an arcade or a roller coaster or a specific flat ride. And then AI would theoretically generate some very unique ways of using pieces which could look really cool in a semi-realistic setting in Planet Coaster. This is kind of the way that I use it. It is the thought of generating ideas. I think I use probably about 80% of them, and then the other 20, I make some creative liberties because it doesn't understand what I'm seeing. I periodically have it check the images that I upload so that I can get direct feedback, because when something doesn't look right, it can give me direct feedback as to how I can improve it, and I can give or take any of the things that it is telling me. I find that to be really important, because if I don't do that, it means I have to bother somebody else and take up their time. And I do want that feedback. Sometimes I just end up in a place where I'm half burned out and I just can't continue with a particular build. And so it's really hard to really stress how important this is for me. It's basically taking away the roadblock in front of me so that I can keep on building something that I truly enjoy looking at. If something is more directly built with AI in mind, like it tells you from start to finish how to make something, and it tells you exactly the types of pieces to use, and you're going back and forth with it over and over again, at that point, is it really truly something that you made? Say you have a bunch of pieces in a tab, you take a photo, upload it to like ChatGPT or something, it tells you exactly what piece to use in the menu, you place it down the exact way that it tells you to, you repeat ad infinitum until you get the process done that you wanted. What is workshop clout worth in that scenario? You'll just be known as the guy that uses AI to make all this stuff. And if not, then it just feels like everything is super generic and too general. So you can't solely rely on it for everything, but it is a very helpful tutor and knows a lot of the inner workings of how architecture works, so that you can understand how to make something to scale and believable at a glance. Or better yet, if you're trying not to make something like that, you can tell it exactly what you want to see, and it will point you in the right direction. I tend to liken AI as a map. It tells me which direction to go generally. How I get to that destination is up to me. It may even outline some roadblocks and maybe some shortcuts to get to my destination. With that said, you should not use it as a tour guide. It's a creative game. If you're not the one actually making the stuff, then at some point you can no longer call it yours. So with that all said, I'd kind of like to sum up my thoughts this way. If on a fundamental level, you do not want to use AI for any reason, simply because of the way that it affects the environment, it affects humanity, and its current implications at the moment, I understand. It is my personal belief that you can feel however you want to, and you can use tools and different types of things however you want to. But the reality on the ground is that I don't think AI is going away. Let's think of this relative to the internet when it was first conceived and came about. It was used in the military for fast interactions between military generals and used in some of the first computers. It eventually grew into something that was more consumer grade, and we all know it now today. Everyone uses the internet. Not a single person doesn't. What makes AI slightly different is it is taking everything on the internet and compiling it into subsets of data that basically kick back to you in an understandable way without you ever having to search or look for the information that you're asking for. If that were conceived 10 years ago, it would be revolutionary for the time. Now, it's hard to see past all of the drawbacks for AI usage, but there are ways to use AI which are less impactful in an energy sense. That is the biggest thing about this whole debate. I personally will only ever use AI prompting to help me when I build so that I don't burn out nearly as quickly and I can work 2 or 3 times as fast on the builds that I truly care about. And if I didn't have it, I would be very slow because truthfully, I have ADHD. Maybe some of that comes with autism. I was diagnosed when I was very young, but I've only recently understood that this means that I take a lot more time to finish a task. So if I don't have this type of thing, it will not help me work the same way that a normal human can. Add to it that Planet Coaster is a game that takes very long to make a lot of progress in, especially if you're worried about all of the micro details. It just becomes this game that is an incredible slog to get through if you want to put any semblance of time and effort into. So AI is essentially a lifeline for me in its most basic form, and it doesn't need to be anything more than that. I'm trying to take the nuances into account so that I'm not part of the problem that is drying up many of these small towns and becoming a huge energy concern for the greater globe. I guess I'll leave it here. If you have any nuances that maybe I didn't cover in this video, please let me know. I would love to hear your perspective, and truthfully, this is a place where I don't feel like hate is necessarily deserved one way or another. This isn't a place for political discussion, but you can mention maybe reasons as to why you don't use it, aside from your own personal beliefs. And if it's not necessarily about your own personal beliefs and you use it anyway, what do you make of all of this discussion? How do you use it in your parks? Well, one thing's for sure. AI will not help me actually understand how the game mechanically functions. So I will continue to be doing all of that work myself, and you can expect relatively accurate information about how the game's inner workings actually function here on my YouTube channel. I've got a whole bunch more in the works, which will mostly come out after the 2-week challenge is over, which is, I think, in another 4 weeks, but my summer is quite packed, so I think once I finally get around to it, it'll be a little bit, and I think by then, we'll have the DLC out. That's very silly to think about, actually, but it sounds like it's going to be a good one. So hopefully we'll have a lot more to discuss then. But until that comes, and until the next video, thank you very much for watching and allowing me to entertain you with some ideas about a very hot button and sensitive issue for the greater online community. Have a good one. That's an order. Follow Wicked Soldier.